You are now tuned into Then Radio. If you enjoy our videos, we ask that you consider joining our Patreon to support our channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe so that you never miss a new video. We hope you enjoyed today's episode, and as always, thank you for watching.
Kreml Hair Tonic and Kreml Shampoo present the new adventures of Sherlock Holmes, starring Nigel Bruce as Dr. Watson and Tom Conway as Sherlock Holmes. Now for our weekly visit to the famous chronicler of Sherlock Holmes, our good friend Dr. Watson. Well, Dr. Watson, how are you this evening?
Oh, in the best of spirits, Mr. Bell. Thank you. And you?
Never better, thank you. And am I correct in deducing that faded old newspaper lying upon your desk has something to do with the story you're going to tell us tonight?
Indeed, Mr. Bell. Here you are. The London Times of September the 4th, 1903. Take a look at this.
Judges summing up to jury interrupted. Sensational solution by Mr. Sherlock Holmes.
Yes, I think that you will find it equally sensational, Mr. Bell. It was one of Holmes's most dramatic cases. But first, you want a word with our listeners. Go ahead. Well, I light up the pipe.
Thank you, Dr. Watson. Men, in summer when you go without your hat, does your hair get dry, wild, and unruly looking? After a swim, does it feel sticky and stringy? Then remember, Kreml Hair Tonic keeps dry, wild, sun-baked hair looking perfectly groomed throughout the hottest, stickiest day, as if your barber had just combed it. You see, Kreml contains a special combination of hair grooming ingredients which is found in no other hair tonic. This wonderful, natural-looking hairdressing has just enough light oil to keep hair neatly groomed with an attractive, healthy-looking luster. Yet Kreml never leaves the hair looking or feeling greasy or sticky. Kreml always looks and feels so clean on both hair and scalp. It leaves the scalp feeling so cool, so refreshed and alive. Be sure to try it, men. Kreml, Kreml Hair Tonic. And now that I see you've got your pipe drawing to your satisfaction, Dr. Watson, how about the story you promised?
Well, Holmes and I had just returned from a long-anticipated holiday in Scotland. Mrs. Hudson greeted us with the news that a lady was at that moment awaiting us in our rooms. And as we opened the door...
Oh, Mr. Holmes, at last, thank heaven.
I beg your
pardon. You
pardon.
must save him. He didn't do it. I know he didn't. And they'll hang him. They'll hang him. No one in the world but you can help him now.
Now, my dear madam, you must control yourself. I can't possibly help you until I know your problem.
Oh, you must excuse me.
Here, my dear. You drink this. It'll make you feel better.
Oh, thank you. I've been waiting for you, Mr. Holmes, praying for your return for days. You left no forwarding address.
I know. Dr. Watson and I had promised ourselves a real holiday.
I'm Edith Fairmont. Evidently that name means nothing to you. You haven't seen the newspapers?
No, not for 4 weeks, thank him.
Compose yourself, madam, and tell us what has brought you here. And remember that we know nothing beyond the obvious facts that you are in great distress and, from your peril, recently widowed.
Well, I shall try to give you a clear account, Mr. Holmes. You're my one remaining hope. Some 10 years ago, I married Augustus Fairmont, a marriage which, I frankly admit, was forwarded more by my parents than by any wishes of mine. I was then only 18. Augustus was more than 20 years older than I. He was a diamond importer, and a very successful one. Our marriage was perhaps not an ideally happy one. But for 10 years, I did my best to be a good wife to Augustus.
No, my dear. Just
please continue, Mrs. Fairmont.
About a year ago, my husband took into partnership with him a young man of 32, Charles Rossiter. During the ensuing months, Charles and I fell in love, Mr. Holmes. But I assure you that both my self-respect and Charles's high sense of honor kept us from anything more than a declaration of that love. Oh, I beg you to believe that I'm telling you the entire truth.
I'm sure you realize, Mrs. Fairmont, that is the only thing to do.
Yes, of course.
Charles wanted to discuss our problem with my husband, but I persuaded him to let me approach Augustus. But the result was as I had anticipated. Afterward, I met Charles for tea, as we'd agreed, to tell him what had happened.
you'd never get here.
Oh, it was difficult, Charles. Even more difficult than we expected. I hate to tell you this, my dearest.
You don't have to tell me. I knew as soon as I saw you.
Augustus refused even to discuss the possibility of giving me a divorce. You know how violent his temper is. He really frightened me.
I wish you'd let me speak to him.
I'm glad I didn't. His hatred for you is great enough as it is.
But how can he want to hold you tight to him in marriage knowing that you love me? I should think that any decent
Evidently you don't know Augustus very well. He has an almost abnormal sense of possession. Whatever belongs to him, he'll keep, no matter what the cost.
Very well, then. We've tried to do the right thing. Since he won't give you a divorce, there's only one thing left. Leave him. You and I will go to America or the continent and make a new life there for ourselves.
I can't, Charles. You know that I love you, but we could never find happiness in that sort of life. I want to be your wife, Charles, to have children. And since that's denied us, we must stop seeing each other. I shall always love you, dear.
Edith, you can't go out of my life like that.
There's no other way. Goodbye, my darling. That was the last meeting I had with Charles, Mr. Holmes.
I see. Go on, Mrs. Fairmont.
Well, my husband and Charles were, under the circumstances, equally anxious to dissolve their partnership. They agreed to make a final trip to Amsterdam to complete a transaction which they'd previously arranged, after which the business was to be dissolved.
How long ago was this?
A little more than a month ago. The day before they left, my husband, telling me that he was unable to find the revolver which he always carried when transporting valuable shipments of diamonds, asked me to buy him a new one. I did so, and he took it with him when he sailed. 2 days later, having completed their business in Amsterdam, Charles and my husband started back to England aboard the night boat from Flushing. My husband had with him over 10,000 pounds worth of unset diamonds which they'd purchased.
I assume, Mrs. Fairmont, that this part of your narrative is all hearsay.
What I'm telling you now, I've learned from the police. Charles and my husband had adjoining cabins on the boat. It was a foggy night in the North Sea, and about midnight, a German gentleman in the cabin adjoining my husband's, on the other side from Charles's, heard the sounds of a violent quarrel between Charles and Augustus.
Stuart! Yes, Mr. Smith? What can I do for you? Listen to that bellowing in there. Is this a cattle boat? How can I sleep with such a verfluchte noise going on?
Oh, I'm very sorry, sir. The gentleman do seem a bit agitated, like. I'll knock on the door. I'm sorry, sir, but there's been a complaint from some of the passengers regarding the noise.
Oh, all right.
There you are, Mr. Smith. If there's any more disturbance, just ring for me.
If there is any more disturbance, I go to the captain. For an hour now I have been trying to get to sleep.
What was that?
That was a shot, you Dummkopf. Come.
It's locked.
Well, break it down.
Oh, good heavens.
That man is dead. Dead as a doornail.
It's Augustus. What's happened?
You ask what has happened? With that man dead on the floor and you in the doorway between your cabins? Here, Stuart, get the captain. I'll watch this murder until you come back.
There, Mrs. Fairmont. I can understand what a strain it must be for you to tell all this. Let me get you some aromatic...
I'm all right, Dr. Watson. Thank you.
Your husband had died instantly, Mrs. Fairmont?
So the police said, Mr. Holmes. Apparently the revolver had been fired at very close range, directly into his head. They said he must have fallen dead on the instant.
And the revolver?
Well, it was gone, Mr. Holmes. The porthole which gave onto the sea was wide open. The police, of course, say that Charles threw the revolver out of the porthole after shooting Augustus. The bullet was a .32 caliber, the same as the one I had purchased at my husband's request.
And what has Mr. Charles Rossiter to say?
Well, what is there for him to say?
Oh, quiet, Watson.
Oh, I don't blame you for thinking that Charles is guilty, Dr. Watson. Everyone in the world thinks so. But I know that he isn't. He has sworn to me that it's a complete mystery to him, and I believe him. If I didn't believe him, there'd be nothing left to live for. The
police arrested him, of course.
Oh, naturally. He He goes to trial at the Old Bailey tomorrow. Oh, Mr. Holmes, you must save him. You must. You're my only hope. No one else can do it. Say that you will.
I cannot promise that, Mrs. Fairmont. I'll undertake the case, but you must understand that anything I discover, even though it may be evidence damning to Mr. Rossiter, will be turned over to the police.
That's all I ask. I know he's innocent, and I have faith that you'll prove it.
I beg you not to indulge in any false hopes, Mrs. Fairmont. I shall do my best to uncover the truth, but we have little time at our disposal. You omitted to mention what had happened to the diamonds. Were they found on your husband's person?
Oh, I almost forgot. They seemed so unimportant. The diamonds were missing, Mr. Holmes.
Huh? Missing? Oh. How do you account for that?
The police think that Charles was going to steal them, and that suddenly realizing the impossibility of the idea, he threw both them and the revolver out of the porthole.
Odd. Well, with the trial starting tomorrow, Mrs. Fairmont, Watson and I have much to do. Our first task must be a complete examination of the police records of the case. I know you'll excuse us if we hurry off, Mrs. Fairmont. Our first call must be on Mr. Charles Rossiter in prison.
And as heaven's my witness, Mr. Holmes, I've told you and Dr. Watson everything I know.
You say that you and your late partner had taken out business insurance on each other's lives?
Yes, Mr. Holmes, to the extent of £25,000 apiece.
£25,000 apiece? I say that makes it look even worse, Holmes, huh?
Unfortunately, yes. One more question, Mr. Rossiter. After the quarrel on the boat, when the steward had knocked and requested silence, you went back into your own cabin. Is that correct?
It is, Mr. Holmes.
And according to you, you heard the sound of a shot from Fairmont's cabin a moment later. How much time would you say had elapsed?
Oh, a very short interval, not more than 15 seconds at the outside.
Thank you. Well, Mr. Rossiter, I'll do what I can, but...
Oh, I know it's hopeless. I wouldn't believe the story myself if I heard it from someone else. Tell me, Dr. Watson, you're a medical man. Could I conceivably have had a lapse of memory? Could I have shot Fairmont without knowing anything about it?
Well, it seems to me almost inconceivable. I never heard of a case of amnesia or loss of memory that began and ended all in the space of a couple of minutes.
Well, come on, Watson. We must be going.
Mr. Holmes, do you think there's any chance?
Keep up your courage, Mr. Rossiter. There's always a chance. Water.
I say, Holmes, I grant you that Mrs. Fairmont's a lovely woman and that young Rossiter had a lot of provocation. But why did you tell him that there was a chance? It hardly seems cricket to me.
I told him that there was a chance, Watson, for the excellent reason that there is.
Chance of what?
Of acquitting Rossiter of a crime which he very obviously did not commit.
What do you mean to say?
Come along, Watson. We've no time to stand about arguing. Rossiter's trial opens tomorrow morning. And if we're to secure the evidence we need, you and I have our work cut out for us.
Evidence? Evidence of what?
Evidence to convince a jury. The sequence of events is obvious, but it'll require a continuous chain of proof to convince a jury of Rossiter's innocence.
Innocence? On my soul, Holmes, I think you must be mad. The prosecution has an absolutely clear-cut case, and you go on prattling about Rossiter's innocence. If Rossiter didn't shoot Augustus Fairmont, somebody must have.
Somebody did, Watson. And a devilishly clever plot he invented, too. But if we're to save Rossiter from hanging, it's up to us to prove it.
In just a moment, we'll find out if Sherlock Holmes is able to prove it. Men, on hot, sticky summer days, your hair needs extra special care. And when you buy a hair tonic, why not buy one that does lots more than keep your hair looking handsome? Why not get your money's worth and buy Kreml hair tonic? No other hair tonic keeps the hair more neatly groomed and attractive looking. Kreml gives hair such a handsome, clean-cut appearance. It keeps the hair perfectly groomed throughout the hottest, stickiest day. It never looks or feels greasy or sticky. In addition, Kreml is simply great to lubricate a dry scalp. At the same time, it removes itchy, loose dandruff and leaves the scalp feeling so clean, refreshed, and alive. No wonder Kreml is preferred among America's most prosperous men. Buy a bottle of Kreml at any drug counter. Ask for an application at your barber shop. Use this highly specialized hair tonic daily for better groomed hair, a more hygienic scalp. Kreml, Kreml hair tonic. Now, Dr. Watson, what steps did you and Sherlock Holmes take next to prove Rossiter's innocent?
Well, Holmes and I hurried to the offices of Fairmont and Rossiter in Hatton Gardens. Assisted by Fairmont's chief clerk, a little dried-up wisp of a man, we spent the next hour in an intensive study of Fairmont's old checkbook stubs.
There's no question of it, Watson. These regular payments, month after month, to Mademoiselle Elaine Dufour can only mean one thing.
Oh, I don't see why. She might have been an old nurse of his or something.
Really, Watson.
Huh?
One does not pay one's old nurse £50 a month over a period of years.
Oh, perhaps you're right.
Thank heaven we found Mademoiselle Dufour's address.
Why?
Because you're leaving for Paris tonight.
Paris?
And I want you to bring back Mademoiselle Dufour no matter what means you use to persuade her.
Oh, really, Holmes? What are you going to do? I'll be doing while I'm off on this wild goose chase.
I have a few things to look into, Watson. Quite a few things. And you performed the post-mortem yourself, Dr. Macpherson?
I did, Mr. Holmes. And I'm prepared to stake my professional reputation that Augustus Fairmont would have been dead within a year, no matter what had been done. That disease had progressed too far for surgeries to be any use whatsoever.
You told the police this, of course.
Oh, naturally. They weren't interested. All they cared about was the bullet which finished the fellow off.
Of course, you understand, Mr. Holmes, that after the police had finished, this cabin was all straightened up. New carpet on the floor, everything ship-shape.
Quite. And Mr. Fairmont's body was lying right here. Is that right, Stewart?
It was indeed, sir, and a fair turn he gave me, with half his head blown off.
And this cabin and the adjoining one, occupied by Mr. Rossiter, are identical in every way?
Yes, sir.
Ah. I'd hoped to find something like this.
What was that, sir?
Take a good look at this, Stewart. I may need your evidence in court. This rather deep nick here in the lower part of the brass rim of the porthole.
Oh, I see the nick all right, sir, but I'm blasted if I can make
Just tell me one thing. After the tragedy, was any heavy object missing from Mr. Fairmont's cabin? Something heavy but fairly small?
That's a queer thing, sir, now that you come to mention it. I reported to the chief steward that the heavy glass water bottle was gone when the police let me straighten up the cabin. But I didn't think nothing of it at the time, except that maybe it got smashed in all the confusion.
Thank you, Steward. Thank you very much indeed.
And you asked me to come back to England with you, Dr. Watson?
Yeah, I do indeed, Mademoiselle Dufour.
To go into court and tell everything? I know nothing about your English laws. Perhaps I render myself liable to prosecution. All this for the sake of a man whom I have never seen.
Not only for his sake, mademoiselle, but also for the sake of the woman who loves him. And, most important of all, for the sake of right and justice. To save a man from hanging for a crime that he did not commit. There's no way in which I can force you to come with me. I can only most earnestly beg you to do what we both know is the right thing.
And in the final analysis, members of the jury, I must remind you that the decision as to Charles Rossiter's guilt or innocence rests solely with you. Under the law, my province as judge is merely to assist you in reaching a just verdict. And this I have endeavored to do by summing up for you the evidence to which we have been listening during these last 3 days. The prosecution has endeavored to prove to you that this man, who has not denied his love for Mrs. Fairmont, knew that they could never be together so long as her husband should live. You have heard the evidence of their quarrel on the boat, of the shooting, and of the scene found by Mr. Schmidt, the steward, and the other witnesses when the door to the cabin was broken down. You have heard the suggestion of premeditation in the purchase of the weapon by Mrs. Fairmont, a weapon which, though missing, was of identical caliber with the bullet which killed her husband. You have heard the prisoner's protestations of innocence and his own inability to offer any logical explanation of the tragedy. Under these circumstances,
My lad, I beg leave to interrupt.
Well, Sir Aubrey, what is it you want to say?
During the entire trial, my lad, my client and I have put our hopes in an investigation being conducted by the eminent criminologist, Mr. Sherlock Holmes. Mr. Holmes has just arrived in court, together with his colleague, Dr. Watson, who has brought with him from Paris a witness whose evidence is vital to the defense. I respectfully beg your lordship's permission, and that of the prosecution, to allow Mr. Holmes to tell us what he has discovered.
It is most irregular, Sir Aubrey, but the primary concern of this court is that justice be done. In view of Mr. Sherlock Holmes' distinguished record and many services to the law, I see no objection to granting your request.
Thank you, my lord. I assure you that we would not have waited till so late in this trial to present our evidence had it not been for the fact that Dr. Watson has only at this moment arrived from Paris, escorting a lady who is the final link in that chain of evidence.
Proceed, Mr. Holmes.
The late Augustus Fairmont, married to a woman more than 20 years his junior, was a man with a very great sense of possession. Whether or not he loved his wife, he was determined that no one else should have her. And when his wife freely and honestly confronted him with her admission that she loved another man, Fairmont could think of nothing but revenge.
I'm willing to allow you a fair amount of latitude, Mr. Holmes, but this seems to have no bearing on the case.
With your lordship's permission, I hope to establish its bearing in just a moment. I have here in court Dr. Macpherson, who conducted the post-mortem upon the late Mr. Fairmont. Dr. Macpherson will testify that Augustus Fairmont was suffering from an incurable disease which would unquestionably have killed him within another year.
Silence in the court.
Also in court and ready to testify is Sir Edward Penrose of Harley Street, to whom Augustus Fairmont went for an opinion just a little more than 6 weeks ago. Sir Edward informed Fairmont, who had never before suspected the presence of this disease, that he would be lucky if he lived for 6 months, and that there was nothing to be done. Now, Fairmont, faced with the knowledge that he would die, probably painfully and lingeringly, within a few months at most. And the bitterness of this knowledge must have been increased 100-fold by the realization that his death would remove the last barrier to the wedding of these two people who loved each other.
Bravo, Holmes. Quiet in the court.
Oh, sir.
Then Augustus Fairmont evolved in his twisted mind a perfect plot. He would die, not lingeringly and painfully, but instantly. And in dying, he would make sure that Charles Rossiter, the man he hated, would be hanged for his murder. With his partner, Rossiter, Fairmont sailed to Amsterdam. But when he had purchased some 10,000 pounds worth of diamonds, the thought crossed his mind of making a final provision for the woman whom, for many years, he'd been seeing in France. She's here now, due to Dr. Watson. And I will ask her to rise. Mademoiselle Dufour, is it not true that Mr. Fairmont provided for you during the last 6 or 7 years, and that he visited you frequently during his trips to the continent?
That is correct, Mr. Holmes.
Now, will you please tell the court what you received in the mail from Mr. Fairmont the day after you read of his death?
I received a package containing a small fortune in unset diamonds, together with a letter from Auguste, saying that I would not hear from him again, that I should make no inquiries concerning him, and that these diamonds would provide me with sufficient funds for the rest of my life.
Thank you very much, Mademoiselle Dufour.
Quiet in the courtroom.
I think that will be all.
Oh, magnificent, my dear. I'm very, very proud of you. Well
Augustus
done.
Fairmont
Very well
provided
done.
for the woman with whom he had so long a friendship. He did this with the knowledge that he was to die that very night. On board the boat, he purposely entered into a noisy argument with young Rossiter, an argument which ended with the steward knocking on the door. A moment later, Rossiter returned to his own cabin and shut the communicating door. The instant he had done so, Fairmont took from its place of concealment the revolver which, with studied malice, he had caused his wife to buy. This revolver Fairmont had previously prepared for what he was about to do by tying a stout string from its trigger guard to the heavy glass water bottle he had taken from his cabin wall. It was the work of but a moment, after Rossiter had closed the door, to suspend the heavy bottle outside the porthole which gave directly upon the sea. Then Fairmont raised the revolver to his head and pulled the trigger. As he fell dead, the revolver, released from his hand, was pulled sharply up and out of the porthole by the heavy weight of the bottle. It hit the edge of the porthole, nicking the brass rim, and then disappeared forever into the depths of the North Sea.
Unless this demonstration is stopped instantly, I shall have the courtroom cleared.
My lad, in view of the evidence offered by Mr. Sherlock Holmes, the Crown withdraws its charge against Charles Rossiter.
Oh, great work, Holmes. Great work. You brought it off, old man.
I never could have, Watson, if you hadn't been persuasive enough to get Mademoiselle Dufour here in time.
Very good to say so, boy. Ah, look. Here comes Mrs. Fairmont.
Oh, God bless you, Mr. Holmes. And you too, Dr. Watson. Oh, I've got to kiss you both.
Oh, that's very nice. Upon my word, that's the nicest fee we've ever had.
Now, friends, our guest star, one of the greatest authorities on feminine beauty, that king of glamour, John Robert Powers. And you know, Mr. Powers is famous for his $1 million Powers models. Gorgeous girls you often see on magazine covers, in the movies, in exclusive fashion shows. Ladies and gentlemen, by special transcription, Mr. John Robert Powers.
Good evening, friends. I have a little surprise for you this evening, as I brought along one of my most attractive Powers girls of all times, Ellen Allardyce. And perhaps we can get Ellen to tell us how she keeps her hair so bright and shining. Will you, Ellen?
I owe all that to you, Mr. Powers. Do you remember how you told me to always wash my hair with Kreml shampoo?
I certainly do, Ellen. I tell all my Powers girls to use Kreml shampoo. I'm thoroughly convinced that no other shampoo leaves the hair more radiant with such natural, brilliant luster. And Kreml shampoo keeps it that way for days.
What I like about Kreml shampoo is that it never dries the hair.
That's right, Ellen, because Kreml shampoo has a built-in oil base. This oil base actually helps keep the hair from becoming dry and brittle.
I know it. Kreml shampoo always leaves the hair so much silkier with a lovely natural satin sheen. And I love the way Kreml shampoo whips up just lots and lots of luxuriant active foam, even in the hardest water.
Ellen, I think every girl owes it to herself to try Kreml shampoo. I feel certain she'll be in for one of the greatest beauty thrills of her life. Because, without a doubt, in all my years spent in helping women become more attractive, I've never come across a more beautifying shampoo than Kreml shampoo.
Many, many thanks to you, Mr. Powers, and to your very lovely Powers model, Miss Ellen Allardyce. Now, Dr. Watson, what about next week?
Well, now, let me see. Next week, in answer to many requests, I think I shall tell you about the most gruesome and most horrifying experience that Holmes and I ever had. It concerns the frightening happenings at Stoke Moran, the home of Dr. Grimesby Roylott, and tells how Holmes solved the mystery of the death of one of Dr. Roylott's two daughters and prevented the murder of the other. I call it The Adventure of the Speckled Band.
Tonight's new Sherlock Holmes adventure was suggested by an incident in Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's story, The Problem of Thor Bridge. Nigel Bruce appeared by permission of Universal International Pictures. Tom Conway through the courtesy of Eagle Lion Pictures. The Sherlock Holmes series is produced by Tom McKnight, with original music composed and conducted by Alex Steinert. This is Joseph Bell speaking for Kreml Hair Tonic and Kreml Shampoo, inviting you to be with us next week at this same time. And Dr. Watson will tell us about the adventure of the Speckled Band. This is ABC, the American Broadcasting Company. Kreml Hair Tonic and Kreml Shampoo present the new adventures of Sherlock Holmes, starring Nigel Bruce as Dr. Watson and Tom Conway as Sherlock Holmes. Here we are once again in Dr. Watson's study. Good evening, Dr. Watson.
Good evening, Mr. Bell.
What incident are you going to tell us about this evening, Dr. Watson?
Well, I haven't quite decided. Supposing we... What was that? Oh, the fire. Top log has fallen off. Where did I put that poker? Oh, here it is. There we go. Ah, that's better.
Oh, what a curious old poker, Dr. Watson. It looks as though it had been seen many years of service.
Yeah, so it has, my dear fellow, so it has. It belonged to Sherlock Holmes himself in the days when we were sharing rooms in Baker Street. You know that I think I could do no better than to tell you the particular incident that poker recalls to my mind.
Well, please do.
I can't recall any case which presented more singular features than that which we always referred to as the adventure of the Speckled Band.
Speckled Band? What does that mean, Dr. Watson?
We'll get to that in a minute, Mr. Bell. But first...
Men, hot summer days are with us again. And after a day spent under a hot, broiling sun, does your hair look as stiff as straw, dry, matted, or tangled? Does the humidity make it stringy and look rumpled and unattractive? Then don't make the mistake of plastering your hair down with greasy, sticky goo. Instead, put Kreml Hair Tonic on the job. Kreml is that famous modern hair tonic, such a wonderful, natural-looking hairdressing. Kreml has just enough light oils to keep dry, stringy hair neatly groomed throughout the hottest, stickiest day. Yet Kreml never leaves the hair looking or feeling greasy. It never leaves any unpleasant odor. Kreml always feels clean on both hair and scalp. You see, Kreml is able to give you all these advantages because it contains a special combination of hair grooming ingredients which is found in no other hair tonic. So, men, make Kreml a daily must this summer for that handsome, clean-cut look from morning till night. Kreml, Kreml Hair Tonic. Now, Dr. Watson, how about the adventure of the Speckled Band?
It was early one April morning, very early, I might say. Holmes, as you doubtless know, was a notoriously late riser. So you can imagine my surprise to find him standing fully dressed by the side of my bed.
Watson. I say, Watson, wake up. Watson, old fellow, if you don't manage to wake up immediately, I shall be obliged to empty the contents of this water pitcher over you.
What's up? Is there a fire?
No, a client.
Oh, a client?
Quite so. A client. It's a girl, a rather charming-looking girl. She's waiting in the sitting room now.
Oh, she?
Here, I'll open the door crack so you can take a look at her.
A lady dressed in black and so heavily veiled that you can't tell a thing about her. Where's my other slipper?
On the contrary, my dear Watson, we can gather a great deal about her. Here's your slipper on the table where you left it last night as a paperweight. Your tie, your good tie, is on the third shelf behind Boswell's Life of Johnson. I presume that's the one you want, inasmuch as it's the one you always wear when you wish to make an impression on one of the opposite sex.
Don't be silly, old man.
But to return to the young lady, she left home very early this morning, came by train, and yet she had a good drive in a dog cart along heavy roads before she reached the station.
Holmes, you're trying to be uncanny again.
Not at all, my dear Watson. It's as plain as the nose on your face. The left arm of her jacket is patted with mud. There's no vehicle save a dog cart which throws up mud in that disgusting way. As for the train journey, I observed the second half of a return ticket in the palm of her left glove.
I never even saw it.
Oh, yes, you did, Watson. You merely did not notice it.
Well, that's all very interesting, but I think we've kept the young lady waiting long enough. Shall we go into her?
By all means. You go first. You're certain to create the more favorable impression.
Oh, thanks so much. Good morning.
Oh, is this Mr. Sherlock Holmes?
I'm that gentleman. This is my intimate friend and associate, Dr. Watson.
How do you do?
You may speak freely before him.
Oh, I see.
Won't you sit down by the fire? I observe that you're shivering.
No, thank you. It's not the cold that makes me shiver.
Oh? What then?
This fear, Mr. Holmes. This terror. I can stand this train no longer. I had to come to you.
I shall be happy, madam, to devote myself to your case if you'll just lay before us everything that may help us in forming an opinion on the matter.
My name is Helen Stoner.
I'm living with my stepfather, who is the last survivor of the Roylotts of Stoke Moran, an old Saxon family.
Oh, I say, Holmes, I heard of him. He's a doctor, isn't he? Went out to Calcutta.
Yes, that is my stepfather.
Oh.
While in India, he married my mother, the young widow of Major General Stoner. My sister Julia and I were twins. We were only 2 at the time of the marriage.
You were brought up in India then?
No, Dr. Roylott was forced to return to this country due to a scandal.
Scandal? Oh, right.
Watson, don't interrupt.
Well, what a scandal was it?
Shortly after that, my mother died, leaving about £2,000 a year to Dr. Roylott as long as we, my sister and I, resided with him. However, in the event of our marriage, we were to receive $550 a year apiece.
And did either of you marry?
No. As a matter of fact, after Mother's death, a terrible change came over Dr. Roylott. He quarreled violently with everyone in the neighborhood, so that we were left almost entirely to ourselves. His only friends are a band of wandering gypsies whom he permits to encamp on the property from time to time. He also has a passion for Indian animals.
Astonishing.
At this moment, he owns a cheetah and a baboon.
Not very cheerful surroundings for 2 young women.
Oh, one gets used to things. The only person we were allowed to visit was a sister of Mother's. While Julia was there, she met the man to whom she became engaged.
I see, and of course your stepfather objected violently.
No, surprisingly enough, he did not.
Oh?
He offered no objections whatever to the marriage.
But I thought that you said that neither of you had ever married.
So I did, Dr. Watson. Julia did not marry because within a fortnight of the day which had been fixed for the wedding, she died.
Died?
Yes, Mr. Holmes. Under the most horrible circumstances.
Can you describe this unfortunate event in detail?
Oh, yes, Mr. Holmes. Every second of that dread time is seared in my memory. The bedrooms at Stoke Moran are on the ground floor. They open off a common passage. Of these bedrooms, the first is Dr. Roylott's, the second my sister's, and the third my own.
I see.
There's no communication between them. Do I make myself clear?
Perfectly so.
The windows of the 3 rooms open out on the lawn. The fatal night, we'd all gone to our rooms early, having carefully locked our bedroom doors on account of the cheetah and a baboon, which were allowed to wander about at will. Suddenly, as I was about to blow out my light, I heard Julia knocking at my door.
Helen, are you awake? May I come in?
Oh, just a minute, I'll unlock the door. Why, Julia, you look as pale as a sheet. What's the matter?
Oh, nothing. At least, nothing I can put my finger on. Maybe it's the wind and the rain. Oh, lock the door, Helen. I'm afraid.
Afraid? Whatever of?
Well, I really don't know. I feel what the Irish call fey, as though death were lurking around the corner. Something seems to keep trying to warn me.
Oh, nonsense, Julia. You're upset. Perhaps the excitement over your wedding. Why aren't you asleep?
Well, I can't. Father keeps pacing up and down next door. But it's not that. It's what? Tell me, Helen. Have you ever heard anyone whistle in the dead of night?
Never.
I don't suppose it could be you in your sleep.
Oh, Julia, don't be absurd.
Well, the last few nights I've heard it. A low, clear whistle, about 3 a.m. And for some reason, it seems to be warning me.
Well, it might be those wretched gypsies in the plantation.
Oh, probably. And yet, if it were on the lawn, I wonder that you didn't hear it, too.
Oh, you know how soundly I sleep.
Oh, well, I'm probably being very foolish. I'll go back to bed and let you get some sleep. Helen?
Yes, what is it?
Would you mind standing here until you hear me lock my door?
Of course not, silly.
Well, good night.
Good night, you goose. There. Gracious, she's getting jumpy. I'll be glad when she's safely married. Listen to that wind. What was that? Nothing. I'm getting as nervous as Julia. I hope nothing. Julia! Julia, what's the matter? There was a whistle. I heard it. Julia! Julia, open the door! Julie, what's happened? Don't stagger like that, darling. I'm coming to you.
It's the band. The Speckled band.
Julie, what do you mean? Oh, merciful heaven, she's having convulsions. Father! Father, help! Help!
And what was found in your sister's room?
That's the strange part. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. The windows were barred by old-fashioned shutters with broad iron bars, and the door was locked on the inside. My sister was alone when she met her doom.
Any marks of violence?
None.
What about poison?
The doctors examined her for it, but without success. It's my belief that my sister died of fright. Pure fright.
When did all this happen?
About 2 years ago.
And why do you come to me at this late date?
Well, I myself am expecting to be married shortly to a man I've known for many years. 2 days ago, some repairs were started in the west wing of the building, so that I've been forced to move into the room where my sister died. To sleep in the very bed in which she slept. Imagine, then, my thrill of terror when last night, as I lay awake thinking over her terrible fate, I suddenly heard the low whistle which heralded her death.
Good gracious me.
Quiet, Watson.
I jumped up, lit the light, but could find nothing. I came straight to you as soon as it was daylight.
If we were to come down to Stoke Moran today, would it be possible to look over these rooms without the knowledge of your stepfather?
He spoke of coming into town today on some important business. It's probable that he will be away all day.
Excellent. You may expect us then, sometime this afternoon, if that is convenient.
Oh, yes. Oh, thank you so very much. I shall look forward to seeing you again this afternoon. Goodbye, Jim.
Goodbye. Well, my dear Holmes, what do you think of it all? What do you make of the sister's dying words, the Speckled band?
It may merely have been the effect of delirium. Or it may have referred to the band of gypsies who sometimes wear spotted kerchiefs. Then, again, it may be something much more deadly. Dear, someone seems to be very anxious to see us. Come in.
Which of you is Holmes?
That is my name, sir.
I am Dr. Grimesby Roylott of Stoke Moran.
Indeed. Pray take a seat.
I will do nothing of the kind. My stepdaughter has been here. I traced her. What did she say to you?
It's a little cold for this time of year.
You put me off, do you? I've heard of you before. You're Holmes, the meddler. Holmes, the busybody. Holmes, the Scotland Yard jack-in-office.
My dear doctor, all this does not alter the fact that it is still decidedly chilly. I seem to feel a draft. Would you mind closing the door from the outside?
I will go when I've had my say. Don't meddle with my affairs. You'll find I'm a dangerous man to fall foul of. Look here.
Look out, Holmes. He's got the poker.
Watch this.
Say, Holmes, he's bent our poker almost double.
My dear fellow, give me that poker. I really can't allow you, sir, to go around breaking up our little household, even if you are a good 40 pounds heavier than I am. Allow me.
Good heavens, Holmes, you've straightened the blasted thing out again.
Well, I'll... Just the same. Look out for me. Both of you.
Charming fellow.
Quite. And now, Watson, breakfast. Then I have 1 or 2 errands to do. After that, suppose you meet me at Waterloo Station at about 11:30.
Right you are, Holmes. I'll be there on the dot.
And you might slip your service revolver into your pocket. It's an excellent argument with a gentleman who can twist pokers into knots.
In just a moment, we'll see what awaits Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson on their visit to Dr. Roylott's home, Stoke Moran. Are you one of the many men who find it difficult to keep your hair neatly groomed in summer? Does the burning sun bake and scorch your hair, making it look messy and not the least attractive? Then try Kreml Hair Tonic. Just notice the amazing change in the appearance of your hair. You see, Kreml does lots more than just keep your hair looking handsome. This highly specialized hair tonic gives you your money's worth. It contains a unique combination of hair grooming ingredients which is found in no other hair tonic. Kreml is simply great to lubricate a dry scalp. And if the sun dries your hair so that it breaks off and falls, Kreml helps condition the hair in that it leaves it feeling so much softer and more pliable when you comb it. At the same time, Kreml removes itchy, loose dandruff and leaves the scalp feeling so cool, refreshed, and alive. So be smart, men. Buy a bottle of Kreml at any drug counter. Ask for an application at your barber shop. Use Kreml daily for better groomed hair, a more hygienic scalp. Kreml, Kreml Hair Tonic. Now, Dr. Watson, you were to meet Sherlock Holmes at Waterloo Station. Is that right?
Quite right, Mr. Bell. And an hour or so afterwards, found us walking in a country lane. Got a match, Holmes? What a perfect day for a walk in the country.
I'm glad you enjoyed.
Isn't that a house poking its head above those trees over there?
Yes, that must be Stoke Moran, the home of our genial friend, Dr. Roylott. I fancy we'll find it shorter to go across the field, and safer in case the good doctor has returned home.
Yes, there's a stile over there where the lady is walking.
And the lady, I fancy, is Miss Stoner. No, my dear Watson, don't try to vault the fence. Remember, you're getting a bit plump.
Oh, rubbish.
Better climb the stile sedately, as I'm doing. That's it.
Good afternoon, Miss Stoner. You see, we've been as good as our word.
I've been waiting so eagerly for you. Everything has turned out splendidly. Dr. Rollett has gone to town, and I don't expect him back before evening.
We had the pleasure of making the good doctor's acquaintance.
Good heavens, he followed me? What will he say when he returns?
You must lock yourself in your room tonight. If he is violent, we shall take you to your aunt's at Harrow.
Don't you think we'd better be getting on with our business before that appalling fellow comes crashing home?
Quite. Handsome old house. I see you're doing some repairs.
Yes. This is the wall of my own room that they're working on.
Quite. By the way, this wall seems to be in pretty good condition. And this, the center room, was your sister's, I take it?
Yes. I'm sleeping there for the present. We can enter it by way of the French window.
First of all, if you'll be good enough to go inside and lower the iron shutter, I'd like to see just how impregnable it is.
Oh, certainly, Mr. Holmes. Just a moment.
Yes. It seems to be quite impassable. You may raise it again. May we come in?
Please do. This is the room, just as she used to have it.
Chest of drawers, bed, dressing table, 2 wicker chairs. Nothing very extraordinary, huh? Wait a minute. I say the bed's nailed to the floor. It's immovable.
I never noticed that.
The long cord. It's a bell pull, isn't it?
Well, yes.
What does it communicate with?
The housekeeper's room. But I don't think my sister ever used it.
It seems newer than the other things.
Yes, it was put up about 2 years ago.
Do you mind if I give it a pull?
Certainly not.
Uh-huh. As I thought. It's a dummy.
Dummy? You mean that it won't ring?
No, Watson, it definitely won't ring. It's not even attached to a wire. Very interesting. It seems to be securely fastened just above the opening of that little ventilator.
Oh, that ventilator was built several years ago, too. It goes into Father's room.
I see. Suppose we take a peek at the doctor's room.
Certainly. Come this way.
I wish you'd hurry, Holmes. I'm getting a bit jumpy. What if the doctor should decide to come home?
This is my father's room.
Nothing very exciting in here, just the usual man's bedroom, except for the safe. You don't by any chance know what he keeps in there, do you, Miss Stoner?
Oh, business papers, I think. I've only seen the inside of it once, and that was some years ago.
There isn't a cat in it by any chance?
No. What a strange idea.
Well, look at the source of milk.
No, we don't keep a cat. But, of course, there's a cheetah and a baboon.
I say, Holmes, look here at this vicious-looking little whip.
Yes, I noticed that. The interesting point is that it is curled upon itself and tied so as to make a small noose of whipcord.
Hello? What's that? I thought I heard a carriage. Yes, by Jove. Must be the doctor coming home.
Go, please. Quickly, before he finds you here.
First of all, promise to do as I tell you. Your life may depend on it.
I'll do whatever you say.
Dr. Watson and I must spend the night in your room.
Mr. Holmes.
Let me explain. We will hide at the lower end of the meadow. We can see your window from there. You must lock yourself in on pretense of a headache. When you hear your father retire to his room for the night, open the shutters of your window. Put your lamp there as a signal to us, and then withdraw into the room you used to occupy. The rest you must leave in our hands.
Yes, I will. Only please go now. No, not that way. Here, through the window.
Say, Holmes, do we have to wait in this blasted meadow all night? I'm chilled to the bone in this wind. Why can't we go down to the inn? I'm sure we can see the windows of Stoke Moran just as well from there.
Impossible, Watson. When the time comes, we must go, and go quickly. A human life may depend on the speed with which we can reach the house.
I say, you give me the creeps.
What's that?
Look, you see it? There in the bushes. A ghastly misshapen figure.
Must have been a baboon. Look, Watson. The middle window.
By Jove, it's our signal.
The lamp. Come along. Hurry. And walk quietly.
So dark, I can hardly see her. I think there'll be a storm coming. Just listen to that wind.
Here we are. Step inside through the window. No noise. I shall sit on the bed. You sit in that chair. Ready? I'm going to turn out the lamp.
I say, Holmes.
Shh. The least sound would be fatal to our plans. Have you your revolver handy?
Yes.
Good. Whatever you do, don't go to sleep. Your life may depend on it.
$11.
Yes. We're in for a long and dreadful vigil.
Holmes, my foot's beginning to go to sleep.
Whatever you do, don't move. That wicker chair makes an infernal racket.
Holmes, do you hear that? There it is again. You don't suppose this place is haunted, do you?
That, I fancy, is the cheetah. Look, Watson. The ventilator. A gleam of light. Now it's gone again. Wait. Things are beginning to move. Quiet now. What's that? Quick! Strike a match! Strike a match, Watson! There it is, the filthy thing. There! Take that! And that!
Holmes, what is it? For the love of heaven, why are you slashing at that bell pull with your whip?
You saw it, Watson? You saw it? Aha, my friend. Too late. Ah, how ghastly, how perfectly vile.
No! Holmes, what does that mean?
It means that it's all over, and I think for the best. Come, we shall enter Dr. Roylett's room. Keep your pistol handy. Come quickly.
But Holmes, the door's locked.
Break it in. Wait, I'll help you. Now then, 1, 2, 3.
Holmes, look! On the floor, the doctor. He's dead. Good heavens. What a ghastly look on his face.
As I expected.
Do you see that? The band round his forehead?
That, Watson, is the speckled band.
Great thunder, it's moving. It's a snake.
Yes, a swamp adder. The deadliest snake in India. The doctor died within 10 seconds of being bitten. Here, hand me that dog whip with the noose. Go out, Watson, don't go near. That's better.
Hey, what are you going to do?
The noose goes over the reptile's head, so. And we lift it into the safe. So, and close the door.
I think I'm going to be sick.
No wonder. The doctor's thrust his little playfellow through that ventilator for the last time, I fancy.
But look here, Holmes, I still don't quite understand.
It's all quite simple, my dear Watson, amazingly simple. Our good doctor made use of the reptile to remove his stepdaughter when she threatened to get married and deprive him of her income. That snake has been living in the safe for some time, I imagine. The saucer of milk was its daily ration.
Yes, but how did he succeed? I mean, by what method?
Look at that chair. He must have been standing on that chair. Notice the heel marks, Watson. He thrust the slimy thing through the ventilator into the next room, being careful not to touch it with his hands, but to use the whip, as you saw me do. It was the noose on the lash of the whip that convinced me this afternoon that we were on the right track.
I see. That was why the bell pull was attached to the ventilator in the other room, so that the snake could crawl down.
Exactly. And that was why the bed was nailed within reach of the bell pull.
Oh, the filthy beast.
The first attempt was not successful in the case of either sister. The doctor, fearing this might happen, had trained the adder to return when he whistled, so that he could try again.
And then it must have been his whistle we heard when you began thrashing at the bell pull.
Quite, my dear Watson. When he heard us, he wanted to recall it. But it was too late. The reptile had already thrust its venomous head through the ventilator when I began to slash at it. The snake turned back so enraged that it attacked the first thing it came in contact with, which, by mere coincidence, happened to be its master.
But look here, Holmes. Doesn't that make you indirectly responsible for the death of Dr. Roylott?
Possibly, my dear Watson, possibly. But I cannot say that it is likely to weigh very heavily upon my conscience.
Ladies, here's a sensational beauty tip direct from Hollywood. When you want your hair to look its radiant best for an important date, just do this the night before. Give your hair a 10-minute glamour bath with Kreml shampoo.
I certainly agree with that, Mr. Bell. And you know, Kreml shampoo is the same shampoo used by those famous beauties, the Powers models.
Kreml shampoo has been especially developed to glamour bathe each tiny strand of hair so that it fairly radiates natural, dazzling highlights. It leaves the hair simply gleaming with natural glossy luster. And what's more, your hair stays that way for days.
And please bear in mind that Kreml shampoo is not a soapless shampoo. It is not a cream shampoo. It's not a drying detergent. Not a harsh soap. It's entirely different.
Yes, Kreml shampoo uncovers all the natural highlights that lie concealed in every woman's hair. Yet it never dries the hair. In fact, Kreml shampoo has a built-in oil base which helps keep the hair from becoming dry or brittle. It removes dandruff flakes the first time you use it.
Kreml shampoo whips up a luxuriant, active foam, even in the hardest water. It rinses out so easily and never leaves any dull, soapy film.
So, ladies, why not buy a bottle of Kreml shampoo at any drug counter and glamour bathe your hair to a vision of tantalizing loveliness? Kreml, Kreml shampoo. Now, Dr. Watson, what about next week?
Well, now, let me see. Next week, I think I'll tell you a most bizarre and extraordinary story about a murder that was committed under our very eyes in our own flat.
In Baker Street? Good heavens, that certainly was unusual.
Not only was murder committed, but the murderer was later acquitted in court. If it hadn't been for Holmes's brilliant detective work, I'll tell you all about that next week. I call it The Adventure of the Innocent Murderess.
Tonight's Sherlock Holmes adventure was adapted from Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's story, The Speckled Band. Nigel Bruce appeared by permission of Universal International Pictures. Tom Conway through the courtesy of Eagle Lion Pictures. The Sherlock Holmes series is produced by Tom McKnight with original music composed and conducted by Alex Steinert. This is Joseph Bell speaking for Kreml Hair Tonic and Kreml Shampoo and inviting you to be with us next week at this same time when Dr. Watson will tell us about the adventure of the innocent murderess. Full-time civilians, part-time sailors. That's a thumbnail sketch of the Naval Air Reserve, which this week celebrates its first post-war birthday. 30,000 strong Naval Air Reserve stands ready to man the carriers and the planes of the reserve fleet, should any national emergency arise. We doff our hats to the reserves of naval aviation, the officers and men of Naval Air Reserve on this, their first post-war birthday. This is ABC, the American Broadcasting Company. Kreml Hair Tonic and Kreml Shampoo present the new adventures of Sherlock Holmes, starring Nigel Bruce as Dr. Watson and Tom Conway as Sherlock Holmes. Well, once again, it's Monday night and time for our weekly visit with that excellent host and dean of storytellers, Dr. Watson. I'm sure he's waiting for us in his study, so let's join him, shall we? Good evening, Dr. Watson.
Good evening, Mr. Bell.
I see you have the old black tin dispatch box out again, Dr. Watson. You've been refreshing your memory on tonight's new Sherlock Holmes adventure?
Yes, boy, and while I was going over my notes on the case, I came across this. It played a prominent part in the story that I'm going to tell you.
It's a platinum cross. Is that some kind of medal, Dr. Watson?
It is, Mr. Bell, it is. It's the Cross of St. Hilarious, one of the highest decorations of the small European kingdom of Grosnia.
Presented to Sherlock Holmes, I suppose.
Yes, Mr. Bell, though before he was awarded it, the two of us went through one of the strangest and in some ways the most embarrassing experiences of our entire career. I call the story The Adventure of the Innocent Murderess.
Sounds exciting. We'll be ready for it in just a moment, Dr. Watson. Men, in summer when you go without your hat, does your hair get dry, wild, and unruly looking? After a swim, does it feel sticky and stringy? Then remember, Kreml Hair Tonic keeps dry, wild, sun-baked hair looking perfectly groomed throughout the hottest, stickiest day, as if your barber had just combed it. You see, Kreml contains a special combination of hair grooming ingredients which is found in no other hair tonic. This wonderful, natural-looking hairdressing has just enough light oils to keep hair neatly groomed with an attractive, healthy-looking luster. Yet Kreml never leaves the hair looking or feeling greasy or sticky. It never leaves any unpleasant odor. Kreml always looks and feels clean on both hair and scalp. It leaves the scalp feeling so cool, refreshed, and alive. A recent survey showed Kreml Hair Tonic was preferred among America's most prosperous and successful men, among top-flight executives who know the importance of handsomely groomed hair. Be sure to try it, men. Kreml, Kreml Hair Tonic. Now, Dr. Watson, how about the new Sherlock Holmes story that you call The Adventure of the Innocent Murderess?
Well, Mr. Bell, that strange affair began on a spring afternoon at the turn of the century. It was a beautiful day, and for some hours, Holmes and I had rambled about in the park, in silence for the most part, as befits two men who know each other intimately. It was shortly after 5 when we returned to Baker Street, and I remember that as we opened the front door, Mrs. Hudson spoke to us.
Excuse me, Mr. Holmes.
Yes, Mrs. Hudson, what is it?
There's been a gentleman here asking for you, sir.
So much for our afternoon walks, Watson.
Was he gone, Mrs. Hudson?
Aye, sir.
Didn't you ask him in?
I did that, sir. He waited half an hour. A very restless kind of man he was, walking and stamping all the time he was here. And finally, he ups and outs. And all I could say wouldn't hold him back, Mr. Holmes.
Oh, you did your best, Mrs. Hudson.
But did he leave his name?
Oh, no, Doctor. But he was a foreigner. I swear I've never seen him here before. He'll be back, I'm sure.
Thank you, Mrs. Hudson.
Aye, sir.
Were you expecting a clown, Holmes?
Had I done so, chap, I would not have spent the past few hours wandering about with you in Regent's Park.
Oh, I wonder who he is.
He left us one clue to his identity.
I don't see any clue.
This pipe on the table is not one of yours. A nice old briar with a good long stem.
Well, can you deduce anything from that?
Very little, except for the obvious fact that its owner is left-handed, is a muscular man with an excellent set of teeth, careless in his habits, and with no need to practice economy.
Oh, come, Holmes. That's a little far-fetched.
On the contrary. But I think that's our client now. Meet him on the stairs, will you, Watson?
Yes, indeed.
Now we'll have something more interesting than his pipe to study.
This way, sir. So I thank you, Mrs. Hudson.
That's all right, sir.
You are Sherlock Holmes.
No, my name is Watson, Dr. Watson.
Oh, then you must be Mr. Holmes.
Since there are only 3 of us in the room, that would seem an eminently logical conclusion.
Please, do not make fun of me. I am bewildered foreigner in your country.
Oh, my friend was only joking, sir. Do sit down, won't you, Mr...
My name is Priskop. Igor Priskop. And I do not wish to sit down. It pleases me to walk as I talk. It soothes me. And I am in great need of soothment.
Mr. Priskop, I shall be delighted to give you any assistance I can. I'm only sorry that I was out when you called earlier.
I myself was desolated. But I will waste no further time in desolation. Mr. Holmes, You have in the past performed great service to my country.
And what is your country, sir, may I ask?
The kingdom of Grozny, my friend. Small in area, but great in tradition. Mr. Holmes, as Igor Priskop says, you have helped us in the past.
In a modest way, Mr. Prescott. Though your government was generous enough to award me the Medal of St. Stephen.
First class, a high honor. You were also presented with the Medal of St. Arcadu, second class, as well as that of St. Michael and the 7 subsidiary angels.
Oh, yes, I got one of those.
That one I regret to say is of slight importance.
Mm-hmm.
But now, Mr. Holmes, I come to you as an emissary of Grozny and ask you for your greatest service.
As I recall, Mr. Prescott, my greatest services to Grozny were under the regime of the People's Party.
The party to which I belong.
And if our newspapers are accurate, that is the party which is now out of favor.
I do seem to remember reading something about that in the Times the other day.
I am happy to see that you are both so well informed. Let me now explain this situation to you further, my friends. There is now an international committee of powers meeting at The Hague. They are trying to decide if the royalists rightfully control Grozny or
if your party does.
That is right, Mr. Holmes. In the meanwhile, the Groznian embassy here in London is dominated by the royalists.
Unfortunate for you, I'm sure, but what do you expect my friend to do? He's hardly a politician, you know.
I have come to London to make contact with our exiles here. The embassy must not know. No one must know that Igor Priskop is in London. Mr. Holmes, my very life is in danger. For the sake of my beloved Grozny, I want you to let me stay here in Baker Street, in secret.
That is an unusual request, Mr. Prescott.
A completely impractical one, sir. There's very little room here. Room.
I must insist. You, Mr. Holmes, hold the Order of St. Stephen first class. You're a friend of my people. Now, you must help me. You must.
Good Lord, he's fainted. Very emotional, these foreigners.
No, Watson, no. Look at that stain on his shirt. He's been wounded. Obviously, at least one of his enemies knows that he's in London. That's why he came to us.
Oh, it's only a fresh wound in the shoulder. I'll bandage it up. I have some smelling salts here. That'll bring him round. There we are. Hand me that glass, will you, Holmes?
He's coming to of his own accord. Here you are, Mr. Prescott. Drink this.
Oh, no. No medicine. I do not believe in them.
Never mind about that. You try this.
Thanks, no. Forgive my display of weakness.
Why didn't you tell me that you'd already been attacked, Mr. Prescott?
Oh, it is but a scratch. A clumsy attempt from the darkness as I returned here. I did not wish to alarm you over nothing.
Nothing? Somebody attempts to murder you, you call it nothing.
I repeat my request, Mr. Holmes. Will you let me stay here a while?
Very well, Mr. Prescott. Since your life is in obvious danger, you may stay here in Baker Street.
Da propaspo, Mr. Holmes. I thank you. And let the Chinaku Orchestra play for the embassy ball in Belgrave Square. Here in Baker Street is the true embassy of Grozny.
Good gracious me.
There are 2 nice brown eggs facing you, Watson. Why glower at them? Why not get on with your breakfast?
Oh, I've got no appetite, Holmes. The whole routine of my life has been turned topsy-turvy since you let that fellow Priskop stay here.
It's a pity that this modest flutter of excitement should upset your lives to such an extent. However, it may interest you to know that my brother Mycroft regards our action in sheltering Priskop as a very important one for England.
Oh, has Mycroft been here this morning?
Yes, before you were up. As you know, Mycroft is the unofficial oracle of our Foreign Office. He feels that the Groznian royalists are so closely allied to the court of Prussia as to constitute a menace to our country.
Good gracious me.
However, he also feels that the Committee of Powers at The Hague will rule in favor of the People's Party. If that does happen, the fact that we have helped Priskop will place the Foreign Office in a very favorable position with the new government.
I see. Well, that makes it rather different. I think I will tackle those eggs after all. Where is Mr. Priskop now?
In the next room, conferring with a political friend of his by the name of Carlu Tarfush.
Well, I must say they do have extraordinary names. Carlu Tarfush. Sounds like a double-barreled sneeze.
Ah, Mr. Tarfush. Allow me to introduce my friend, Dr. Watson.
Dr. Watson, how do you do?
And how did you find your compatriot?
Oh, in splendid spirits. And in splendid hands, Mr. Holmes.
On behalf of Grozny, I thank you both for giving him sanctuary.
Nothing at all, sir. Nothing at all. Very happy to have been of any assistance.
Right. Come in.
I must be leaving, gentlemen. Good day to you. And again, my most sincere thanks.
Oh, pardon.
Got a parcel, gents. It's for a Mr. Prispop or something like that.
Oh, here you are, young fellow, my lad. I'll take it.
No, I want to give it to Mr. Holmes. Lummy. Just wait until I tell me old mum I've talked to the great Sherlock Holmes. She won't half be proud. Here you are, Mr. Holmes.
And here's a shilling for your trouble, my boy.
Cool, Bob. Thank you, Governor.
Better be careful, Holmes. That package is addressed to Priskop. It might be a time bomb, you know.
It's sent from the Weintraub Importing Company. We'll see if Mr. Priskop ordered any delivery from there. Ah, there you are, Mr. Priskop. This package just came for you. Were you expecting it?
Oh, yes. Apropos, Mr. Holmes. It is from the Weintraub Company. It must be my Vinku.
Your what?
Vinku. Vinku, the wine of my country. Where would Grozny be without Vinku? The distilled essence and life of whortleberries. No English drink can compare with it. Perhaps you will join me in glass?
I think not, thank you. It's a little early in the day.
Well, I quite agree with you, Holmes.
Then I shall retire to my room alone and sample this Grozny nectar. I shall see you later, gentlemen.
How can he keep a clear head if he starts drinking at this time of the day?
I doubt if the essence of whortleberries is too potent. At least to a Groznian.
Well, it's got someone else at the door. We have all the privacy of Paddington Station.
Come in.
Ah, so.
Good morning, young lady. What can
Where is he? Tell me where he is.
First, tell me who you are, please.
I'm Lavry. Lavry McKelso. Where is Priskop? Lead me to him.
Mr. Priskop is under my protection. Before you see him, I insist on knowing your business, madam.
You are hiding him. But I will find him if I have to search every closet in his house. This door leads to another room. Perhaps he's in there.
Come back. Grab her, Watson.
Mistress.
Priskop! You traitor! You were betrayed.
She's insane. She's insane.
There. Justice is done. Do with me what you will.
Quick, Watson. How's Priskop?
He's dead, Holmes. Shot through the chest, another through the arm. The third shot broke the bottle of wine.
Justice has been done.
Mr. Holmes.
Yes, Mr. Tarbush?
You must save Lavry. She's my fiancée. She had good reason to think Priskop a traitor.
But she shot him down in cold blood, sir.
She did it for Grozny.
She committed murder, practically under our very eyes. She must pay for it. And Dr. Watson and I will have the greatest pleasure in testifying against her. Until her trial takes place, I have nothing further to say.
You seem particularly engrossed at the Times this morning, Holmes.
I'm reading the report of the trial of Lavry McKelso.
Well, I can't see why it's dragging on for so long. We gave our evidence 2 days ago. The case is perfectly clear. She shot Igoro Priskov or whatever his name was before our eyes. She's a murderess. They should hang her.
Sir Francis Jackson, her counsel for the defense, apparently does not share your opinion. He's an extremely clever man. After cross-examining the police surgeon yesterday, he asked for an adjournment until noon today.
On what grounds?
He wishes a fresh post-mortem made. The police surgeon had not examined the contents of the stomach of the dead man.
Why, no should he, Holmes? Priskov was shot to death. We saw it happen. What's Sir Francis up to?
I think I'm beginning to suspect, Watson. And I pray for the sake of my own reputation that I'm wrong. However, it's no use sitting here in Baker Street surmising. Let's go over to the Old Bailey and hear what the post-mortem report discloses.
Gentlemen of the jury, I will read to you the final paragraph of the Home Analyst's report. Sufficient cyanide was found in the stomach of the deceased to have killed 3 men. As you know, cyanide is an almost instantaneous poison. Between this report and the medical evidence you have already heard, there can be no doubt that the deceased Igor Priskov was already dead when the defendant fired the bullet into his body. I therefore instruct you to acquit the defendant.
Good heavens, Holmes. You realize this whole case made us look ridiculous?
I'm well aware of the fact. It's a stigma on our professional reputations, and a stigma that must be removed.
Look out here. Here comes Carlo Tarfush, fiancé of the girl who's just been acquitted.
Well, Mr. Tarfush, I imagine you're very happy.
Oh, of course I am, Mr. Holmes. And I'm marrying Lavry today, as soon as the police release her.
Indeed?
Yes. And in the meanwhile, I have a commission for you. Find the real murderer of Igor Priskov. Find him, Mr. Holmes, or you will become the laughingstock of all Europe.
In just a moment, we'll find out if Sherlock Holmes does find the real murderer of Igor Priskov. Men, on hot, sticky summer days, your hair needs extra special care. And when you buy a hair tonic, why not buy one that does lots more than just keep hair looking handsome? Why not get your money's worth and buy Kreml hair tonic? No other hair tonic keeps the hair more neatly groomed and attractive looking. Kreml gives hair such a handsome, clean-cut appearance. It keeps the hair perfectly groomed throughout the hottest, most humid summer day. It never looks or feels greasy or sticky. In addition, Kreml is simply great to lubricate a dry scalp. At the same time, it removes itchy, loose dandruff and leaves the scalp feeling so clean, cool, alive, and tingling. And if your hair is so dry that it breaks off and falls when you comb it, Kreml actually helps condition the hair, in that it leaves it feeling so much softer and more pliable. So buy a bottle of Kreml at any drug counter. Ask for an application at your barber shop. Use this highly specialized hair tonic daily for better groomed hair, a more hygienic scalp. Kreml, Kreml Hair Tonic, a nationwide favorite among America's most successful men. Well, Dr. Watson, it seems to me that you and the great Sherlock Holmes are in a bad spot. A man poisoned and then shot under your very eyes.
Yes, Mr. Bell, but I can assure you that Holmes, as soon as he returned to Baker Street from the trial, plunged into a fine frenzy of activity. He was examining the top of the table under his microscope for traces of poison where the bottle of wine had been shattered. You've been hunched over that microscope for hours, Holmes. No results yet?
Not as yet.
Well, I was just reading the Evening Gazette. There's an interesting article on the Grosnian situation.
Oh, what does it say?
The committee in The Hague has ruled for the People's Party. And our friend Carlo Tarfush, the one who married the girl Lavry, is to be the new ambassador here in London.
Indeed, how very interesting.
It goes on to say here that they've established that the dead man, Igor Priskov, never was a traitor. The poor girl was deceived by false evidence. The villain who deceived her has fled to Germany.
I was right. This stain, beyond question, is that of wine mixed with cyanide. Now, to track the history of that bottle. We know that nobody tampered with it after it went from the messenger boy's hands to Priskov's. Therefore...
But how are we going to find that boy again?
This is a job for my band of street urchins, the Baker Street irregulars. Round them up, Watson. Tell them I'll give a golden sovereign to the boy that brings him to me first.
Cool. Of course I remember delivering that parcel to you, Mr. Holmes.
Did anyone accost you on your way over here to deliver it, Charlie?
Yes, Mr. Holmes, they did.
Oh, young lady, was it?
Yes, it was. How did you know, sir?
Describe what happened, Charlie.
Well, Mr. Holmes, she spoke to me on the street. Nice and friendly she was. And then she took me in a tea shop and gave me a raspberry tart and a nice big cup of tea.
Where did you put the parcel?
On the chair beside me.
Oh, it's easy to see what happened, Holmes. She switched the parcels.
Quite. Charlie, was the young lady a foreigner?
Yes, Mr. Holmes. She didn't half talk funny like.
Look at this photograph. Was that the young lady who you're talking about?
That's her, all right, Mr. Holmes. Blimey, you know everything, don't you, sir?
Not quite, Charlie. Here's 5 shillings for your trouble. And I'll be off with you.
Cool, 5 bob. Thank you, Governor.
So the girl was guilty all the time. But I don't see a motive.
I do. And we're going at once to the Grosnian embassy. Remember, She's now the ambassador's lady. I intend to let her know that I do understand.
Mr. Holmes, your conversation is very interesting. But surely I do not have to point to an intelligent man like yourself that I've been tried and acquitted of murder. Under your delightful Anglo-Saxon law of double jeopardy, I cannot possibly be tried again.
Oh, just the same, you're a murderess.
Am I?
You were no passionate patriot. You never believed in that forged evidence. You simply killed Igor Priskop because, with him out of the way, you knew that your future husband would become the ambassador.
In my country, we have a proverb. Insko navili greshko lumagen.
What on earth does that mean?
Ammunition is more persuasive than strategy. Mr. Holmes, you have no ammunition. There is nothing you can do to me. And so, I wish you both good night.
There must be some way of catching her, Watson. There must.
Well, you've been outwitted before, Holmes. People forget it. They don't like to remember your triumphs.
To blazes with the people. I must account for this to myself. Hand me that evening paper, will you, Watson?
There you are.
Where was that article on Grosvenor that you read to me earlier?
Second page, I think.
Here it is. But I have ammunition, Watson. The lady was wrong.
What on earth are you burbling about, Holmes?
We must draft a telegram to Mr. Tarpush, the new Grosnian ambassador. We'll ask him to hold a party of all the most important Grosnian attaches. There, my dear Watson, amid the bright lights and gay music, I shall have the utmost pleasure in proving to the ambassador's wife that she's far from invulnerable.
Mr. Holmes.
Yes, Mr. Ambassador?
The attaches are waiting in the library. You said that you would expose poor Priskop's murderer. Now, why should we wait any longer?
I shall be most happy to explain it now. Come on, Watson.
Right you are, Holmes.
Your wife is in the library, too, Mr. Tarpush?
Yes, Mr. Holmes, and she is as curious as I am. Now, here we are. Ladies and gentlemen, at my request, Mr. Sherlock Holmes has been trying to find the murderer of poor Igor Priskop. He tells me that he is now ready to make his report.
Mr. Ambassador, ladies and gentlemen, I realize that my revelation will be something of a shock to you all. I have proof beyond doubt that the person who murdered Igor Priskop by poison is the same person who fired those shots into his already dead body. Your own wife, Mr. Ambassador.
But that is ridiculous, Holmes. We know that she misguidedly shot at Priskop after he was dead. But she did not poison him.
I can prove that she did. I have the boy outside, Mrs. Tarpush, that you took into the tea shop when you changed the bottles of wine. I have the evidence of the stains on the table that show traces of the poisoned wine. Do you wish me to prove my case?
Lavry? Why do you not answer him?
I do not wish to, Carlo. I do not have to. Under English law, I cannot be tried again.
But, Lavry, you stand accused before your fellow countrymen.
Perhaps I can clear up a slight misapprehension. It is true, is it not, Mr. Tarpush, that Grosnian law does not recognize the doctrine of double jeopardy, and therefore a Grosnian could be tried twice for the same crime?
Of course.
It is also true, isn't it, that the Committee of Powers in The Hague has recognized that the People's Party has been all along the true government of Grosnia?
That also is true, Mr. Holmes.
And an embassy is extraterritorial. Acts committed there are punished by the laws of the nation whose embassy it is.
You are correct, Mr. Holmes.
This embassy here is Grosnian ground. So was 221B Baker Street when Mr. Priskop was murdered. Therefore, your wife committed her crime in Grosnia. She may still be arrested, tried, convicted, and executed by Grosnian law. Mr. Ambassador, I demand that your embassy guards arrest this murderess.
Anything interesting in this morning's post, Holmes?
Yes, Watson. And when you come to write your story of the Grosnian murderers, these 3 missives will provide colorful footnotes.
Oh, what are they?
The first is a note from Kalu Tapush. He is resigning the embassy and entering a monastery. He says, I served his country but destroyed his life.
Well, I'm afraid he loved that dreadful woman. What else did you get?
The second is a package from the Grosnian government.
Good Lord.
Look.
What is it? Oh, good Lord. It's the Platinum Cross.
The Order of St. Hilarious.
What's the funny-looking thing hanging from it? Looks like some strange animal. Half horse and half something else.
That, my dear chap, is known as a hippogriff. A fabled beast with the head and claws of a griffin and the hoofs and tail of a horse. The Order of St. Hilarious is a high order, but St. Hilarious with hippogriff is higher still. I'm very flattered.
What was your third communication?
A letter from my brother Mycroft. He says, thanks to your work, Grosnia has signed a British oil concession. The Empire is grateful.
That's very nice, Holmes.
Yes, Watson, yes, very nice. But just grateful? I mean to say not even grateful with hippogriff?
Girls, those famous $1 million Powers models you see on magazine covers always have to keep their hair shining bright with gleaming highlights. Now, here's how they do it.
We glamour bathe our hair with Kreml shampoo. And I want to state right here and now that no other shampoo leaves the hair more sparkling clean. Really, girls, you'll be amazed how Kreml shampoo reveals all your hair's natural gleaming luster. It leaves hair shimmering with brilliant highlights that last for days.
Kreml shampoo is not a cream shampoo, not a soapless shampoo, not a harsh soap, not a drying detergent. It's entirely different. After a Kreml shampoo, the hair fairly radiates natural glossy highlights. And Kreml shampoo is one shampoo you can buy which never dries or breaks the hair. In fact, it even has a built-in oil base, which helps keep the hair from becoming dry or brittle.
How right you are, Mr. Bell. Kreml shampoo leaves the hair so much softer, silkier, with a lovely satin smoothness. The hair holds a wave better, too.
So, ladies, buy a bottle of Kreml shampoo at any drug counter. See how easy it is to have naturally lustrous hair, a vision of shining beauty. Kreml, Kreml shampoo. Now, Dr. Watson, what about next week?
Well, now let me think. Next week for our final broadcast of the season, I think I'll tell you about one of the most gruesome adventures that we ever encountered. It took place in the famous torture chamber, now a museum, in the castle of Nuremberg in Germany. I call it The Adventure of the Iron Maiden.
Tonight's new Sherlock Holmes adventure was suggested by an incident in Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's story, A Scandal in Bohemia. Nigel Bruce appeared by permission of Universal International Pictures. Tom Conway through the courtesy of Eagle Lion Pictures. The Sherlock Holmes series is produced by Tom McKnight, with original music composed and conducted by Alex Steiner. This is Joseph Bell, speaking for Kreml Hair Tonic and Kreml Shampoo, inviting you to be with us next week at this same time, when Dr. Watson will tell us about the adventure of the Iron Maiden. This is ABC, the American Broadcasting Company. 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 Kreml Hair Tonic and Kreml Shampoo present the new adventures of Sherlock Holmes, starring Nigel Bruce as Dr. Watson and Tom Conway as Sherlock Holmes. Now let's drop in on Sherlock Holmes' friend and ours, Dr. Watson. Good evening, Dr. Watson.
Good evening, Mr. Bell. Here you are. Come and sit down.
Thank you.
I trust you'll join me in a glass of port.
I think I'd better, if only to fortify myself against the horrors of the story you promised us for this evening. The adventure of the Iron Maiden, you called it.
Well, yes, Mr. Bell. For your last visit of the season, I promised you one of our most macabre adventures. And as soon as you've had a word with our listeners, I'll tell you about the Iron Maiden, or she was known in Nuremberg, Die Eiserne Jungfrau.
Men, on hot summer days, does your hair get out of hand and look dry, wild, and unruly? After a swim, does it feel sticky and stringy, so matted and tangled? Then remember, Kreml Hair Tonic keeps dry, wild, sun-baked hair looking perfectly groomed throughout the hottest, stickiest day, as if your barber had just combed it. You see, Kreml contains a special combination of hair grooming ingredients which is found in no other hair tonic. This wonderful, natural-looking hairdressing has just enough light oil to keep hair neatly groomed with an attractive, healthy-looking luster. Yet Kreml never leaves the hair looking or feeling greasy or sticky. Kreml always looks and feels so clean on both hair and scalp. It leaves the scalp feeling so cool, refreshed, and alive. So make Kreml a daily must this summer for that handsome, clean-cut look from morning till night. Kreml, Kreml Hair Tonic. Now, Dr. Watson, I'm sure we're all as anxious as I am to hear the strange story of the Iron Maiden.
Well, it was just before the turn of the century, and Holmes and I had brought to a successful completion a most delicate mission for the reigning family of Saxony. We were spending a day of relaxation in the picturesque old German town of Nuremberg, preparatory to a leisurely trip on the Rhine, and then back to England. As we were getting up from breakfast in our rooms in the hotel, Holmes said,
"Wonderful weather, Watson. And I see you're admiring the excellent view of this quaint old town from our window."
"View? Oh, yes, I suppose the view's all right."
"You don't sound very enthusiastic."
"I'm not. You know what the trouble with Germany is, Holmes?"
"No. What?"
"It's full of Germans." Huh? Must be the waiter. Come in.
Have I the honor of addressing Mr. Sherlock Holmes of London, England?
This is Mr. Sherlock Holmes, sir. My name is Watson. Dr. Watson.
Ah, yeah, Mr. Holmes, so celebrated colleague.
Oh, very good of you.
Permit me that I introduce myself, gentlemen. My name is Ferdinand Langer.
Yes, Mr. Langer?
My friend, the chief porter of this hotel, told me of your arrival, and I have come to beg of you if perhaps you can help me with my so difficult problem.
If it is a matter for the police, Mr. Langer, I fear that I shall be unable to assist you. I have no official standing here. And besides, Dr. Watson and I will be leaving tomorrow.
Ah, the police. To the police I have been, Mr. Holmes. At me they laugh. I am, how do you say, chief keeper of the fünfeckiger Turm.
What?
The five-cornered tower of the castle of Nuremberg. You have heard of it?
Of course. And of its famous torture museum.
Torture museum? That sounds distinctly unpleasant.
For 35 years now I work in the tower. In the last 18 years I am chief keeper. All this time there is never a complaint about me. But now, these last few weeks, the letters have started to come. Each one with more awful threatenings.
Threats, Mr. Langer? Threats of what?
That too old I am getting. That I should resign my position. That if I do not, something terrible will happen. Here is the latest. For yourself, you shall see, Mr. Holmes.
Ah, yes. If my knowledge of German serves me, vague threats, nothing specific, quite a typical letter. From the irregularity of the handwriting, Mr. Langer, the slanting lines and certain other definite characteristics, I'd say that the writer of this letter is definitely unbalanced.
You mean mad, Holmes?
Perhaps not outwardly so, but most definitely abnormal. And from the fact that these threats are evidently designed to make you resign your position, Mr. Langer, I deduce that the author of them must be connected in some way with the affairs of the tower. Have you any suspicions?
This I do not like to say, Mr. Holmes. But there is a young man, my assistant, Heinrich Schiller, who but waits to step into my shoes. He even presumes to pay court to my daughter Elsa.
Oh, well, we're only young once, Mr. Langer.
Oh, my daughter, I have better things in mind than this insolent young man.
Well?
So, you two, Mr. Holmes, think Heinrich wrote these letters? You think I should have him arrested or dismissed?
I think you'll require more evidence than a mere guess, Dr. Langer.
But how shall I get it?
Well, perhaps we might combine business with pleasure. What do you say, Watson? Suppose we have Mr. Langer show us through Nuremberg's most famous sight, the Five-Cornered Tower.
Here we are, gentlemen. If you will just follow me through this gate here. This way, gentlemen.
Just a moment, my man. Are you in charge here?
Yes, madam.
Then why are these people being admitted to the tower, while my friend Miss Simpson and I are kept standing about and debarred from entrance? Oh, do please be careful, Amelia. It isn't as though we were home. Nonsense. I insist upon knowing.
I am sorry, madam, but the tower is not open for visitors until 11 each morning, as you will find if your Baedeker you will consult. And it is now but 10 o'clock.
Then why are these two men being admitted?
Because...
No excuses. I'm English, my man. And in England, we believe in fair play. No favoritism.
I'm sure, Mr. Langer, that you have no objections to showing these two charming ladies through the tower with us.
Oh, of course, Mr. Holmes, if you say so.
I do indeed.
Thank you very much, sir. Just what I should expect from a fellow Britisher.
A pleasure. After you, ladies. Lead the way, Mr. Langer.
At this point, in the very center of the castle we are. Cut from out of the solid rock, built by the prisoners from 1253 till 60 years later.
1253? Victoria, make a note of that.
What in heaven's name is that black pit yawning in the center over there?
The Tiefer Brunnen, the deep well. Lean over and listen while I drop a stone.
Oh, it must be almost bottomless.
About 340 feet, I'd say.
You have been here before, Mr. Holmes?
No, I merely counted the interval from the time you dropped the stone until the splash.
Oh, Amelia, down that corridor, look. That gigantic shadow. It's getting nearer.
Oh, no. Control yourself, madam. It's merely somebody approaching with a torch.
Good morning, Herr Langer. I did not know you were showing a party so early.
That is Heinrich, Mr. Holmes. Follow with us, Heinrich.
Yes, sir.
Here are the dungeon cells, where were kept the prisoners.
Yes, most insanitary, I call it. Nothing but damp stone.
Barbaric. Just what I should expect of foreigners.
And here, the torture chamber.
What are all those strange objects? Oh, at least there's a couch for the poor prisoners.
Hardly that, I fear. That wheel-like object at the head of it proclaims its true purpose.
Yeah, Mr. Holmes. This was the rack. On it they would tie the victim, and with the wheel they would stretch and stretch and stretch his limbs until his bones cracked.
Oh, how awful. Come, Victoria. No weakness.
Pleasant idea, I must say. What's that iron collar thing up there?
Oh, that, Doctor, fits into that larger iron frame which over there you may see. Around the neck of a prisoner, it was snapped and locked, so that the unfortunate man neither sit nor lie down nor sleep could.
Regular chamber of horrors.
And there is the boots, the iron frame in which a prisoner's leg was slowly crushed, and the braziers for melting lead, and heating tongs and pincers. They are all here.
And that large iron affair beneath the embrasure, that, Mr. Langer, I assume to be your famous Iron Maiden.
The Iron Maiden? It looks just like a statue.
I can't say that I consider it a very beautiful one.
It is a statue, madam, but a hollow one. And for good reason.
I think I'd rather not hear about it. Victoria, keep a stiff upper lip.
The two halves of the statue swing open, and within are many iron spikes, as in a moment you will see. Into it was placed the victim, and slowly the door upon him was closed. The maiden's kiss, the executioners called it.
Imaginative bunch of fellows they must have been.
A most graphic description, Mr. Langer.
Thank you. Perhaps one of the ladies would like to open the statue and see within?
Oh, no, not I. Nonsense, Victoria. The ghosts of prisoners who have been dead for 500 years can't hurt you. Here, Mr. Guide. I'll open it.
Good. You lift this bar here, so, and then pull open with this handle.
It works rather stiffly. There, now it's opening.
Good heavens!
Oh, there's something inside.
The body of a woman. No, don't touch her.
Mr. Holmes, the letters. Something horrible they spoke of. Now it has happened.
It's unbelievable.
Control yourself, Victoria.
Schiller, take these two ladies out into the air.
Yes, sir.
Now,
yes.
chin up, my dear. Chin up. Lean on me if you like, but chin up.
Oh, I must say, Holmes, that's about as nasty a sight as I've ever seen.
Quite so, Watson. Mr. Langer, do you recognize this woman?
Never saw her before.
What time yesterday did the last visitors go through?
The museum is closed from 6 o'clock on, Mr. Holmes.
Then the body of this unfortunate young woman must have been placed here between that time last night and the present moment.
Yeah, but how I cannot understand. Now, at last, to me, the police will have to listen.
Undoubtedly. And you'd best send for them at once. Dr. Watson and I will be leaving Nuremberg tomorrow morning. And the authorities will no doubt wish to take our statements.
Immediately, I shall send for them.
We shall wait here for their arrival.
Oh, this scandal. It will wreck the museum. Mr. Holmes, you have seen Heinrich. Tell me, could he so terrible a thing have done?
That, Mr. Langer, is a question we'd best leave to the police.
I fetch them at once.
A curious problem, Watson. The solution is, of course, obvious to you.
Solution? This murder, you mean?
Murder? There's been no murder, Watson.
What the devil do you mean, Holmes? With the cops literally staring us in the face from inside that revolting iron statue.
If you will examine the corpse for a moment, my dear Watson, you'll notice that it exhibits no signs whatsoever of rigor.
By Jove, you're right. But what on earth does it mean?
Simply that this poor woman was dead long before her body was put into the Iron Maiden. I've no doubt that the police will quickly be able to establish that a corpse is missing from the morgue or one of the local hospitals.
But, Holmes, what can be the purpose of so fiendish and so horrible a plot? I hardly expect you to tell me it's merely a practical joke.
Far from it. Madness lay at the bottom of those letters that Langer showed us. And madness placed this body within the statue. But the difficulty, Watson, will be to reveal the madman behind these acts.
In just a moment, we'll rejoin Sherlock Holmes as he endeavors to solve the mystery of the Iron Maiden. Men, on hot, sticky summer days, your hair needs extra special care. And when you buy a hair tonic, why not buy one that does lots more than just keep hair looking handsome? Why not get your money's worth and buy Kreml hair tonic? No other hair tonic keeps the hair more neatly groomed and attractive looking. Kreml gives hair such a handsome, clean-cut appearance. It keeps the hair perfectly groomed throughout the hottest, stickiest day, yet never looks or feels greasy or sticky. In addition, Kreml is simply great to lubricate a dry scalp. At the same time, it removes itchy, loose dandruff and leaves the scalp feeling so clean, refreshed, and alive. No wonder Kreml is preferred among America's most prosperous men. Buy a bottle of Kreml at any drug counter. Ask for an application at your barber shop. Use this highly specialized hair tonic daily for better groomed hair and more hygienic scalp. Kreml, Kreml hair tonic. Now, Dr. Watson, what did Sherlock Holmes do to uncover the madman behind the strange deed in the five-cornered tower of Nuremberg?
Well, by the time that the police had finished with us, it was late in the afternoon. Considerably shaken by the events of the day, we returned to our hotel, where the two ladies who had spent so grim a morning with us were also stopping. after a tub and a whiskey and soda, I don't know which was more welcome, I came back into our room to find Holmes in conversation with young Heinrich Schiller.
Anything I can do, Mr. Holmes, I will. I know that the police suspect me of these letters, and how can I prove that I did not write them? Elsa's father shows clearly that he thinks it is I behind all this horror.
If you will carry out my instructions, Mr. Schiller, I think we may succeed in clearing up this matter this evening.
Heaven bless you, Mr. Holmes. If only you can remove the shadow that hangs over Elsa and myself.
Yes. Now, goodbye. Until later.
Goodbye, gentlemen.
Goodbye. That young fellow looks as though he was at his wit's end.
If the police, the father of the girl you loved, and even the girl herself suspected you of being an anonymous letter writer with a latent streak of insanity, I'd greatly doubt that even you could maintain your usual poise.
Possibly. But I wouldn't write anonymous letters or put corpses in iron maidens.
I trust not.
Well, I'm ready to do good justice to a great dinner. And then a good night's sleep before we start our trip down the Rhine tomorrow.
I hope that the dinner will be good. But I'm sorry to tell you that your chances of a good night's sleep look extremely poor.
Oh? Why?
Because by 10 o'clock this evening, you and I must be securely hidden in the torture room of the castle.
Mm-hmm.
Quite. And before we dine, I'd be obliged if you would unpack your service revolver and make certain that it's loaded. We may well be depending upon you before the night is out.
Oh, just a moment. Where are you off to?
I'm going downstairs to see Miss Atterbury. I'll meet you in the dining room.
That grim-faced old trout? Well, don't tell me you're going to ask her and that mousy little companion of hers to dine with us.
Not at all, my dear fellow. I want Miss Atterbury's assistance in baiting a trap. So there, Miss Atterbury, you have a frank statement of my problem.
I understand, Mr. Holmes.
The difficulty, you see, is that although the man in question is undoubtedly as mad as a hatter, there's no way in the world by which I can prove it. And what I fear is that, having begun with threatening letters and graduated to stolen bodies, his mania may at any time break out in an even more violent form.
Oh, Mr. Holmes, you don't mean murder. Don't be idiotic, Victoria. Of course, Mr. Holmes means murder. Oh.
If you are willing to take the risk, Miss Atterbury, it is my belief that a sudden and violent shock may serve to bring his madness into the open. But I'll not disguise from you the fact that, although Dr. Watson and I will take every precaution, you may still be running a considerable personal risk.
Don't do it, Amelia. This is no concern of yours. Think what the dear vicar would say. The vicar would probably faint. I, however, am made of sterner stuff. Mr. Holmes, I shall be glad to assist you to the best of my ability.
Capital. Then I shall see you at about 11 o'clock tonight, Miss Atterbury. Although you will not see us.
Only 11 o'clock, Holmes. I feel as though we'd been here most of the night. Cold dampness of this infernal torture chamber is like a breath from a tomb.
I only hope, Watson, that my estimate of our man's psychology has been accurate. I'd hate to think that I'd put Miss Atterbury into jeopardy unnecessarily.
She looked to me the sort of female who could take care of herself if she were charged by a mad elephant.
Nothing wrong with her courage, though. There are not many women who would... Listen. You hear that, Watson?
Yes. I hear them.
Now you understand why I pointed the hour at 11. The moon has risen, and enough of her light comes through that narrow embrasure so that you can shoot straight if the need arises.
I have my revolver ready, Holmes.
Be in readiness for anything, Watson. Once they're in this room, we shan't be able to make the slightest sound.
Right you are. You are sure, Miss Atterbury, that no one knows about this visit?
No. I made a point of telling nobody.
Good. Only because you have shown such great interest and been so understanding would I, through the tower, show you at night when the museum is closed.
It's too good of you, my dear Mr. Langer. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. But I did so want to see it by moonlight. When I get back to England, I know I shall be the envy of all my friends.
It is because the proper spirit you show to the memories of the old days that I bring you here now. It is best at night. Those who once screamed aloud in this room, almost you imagine that in the moonlight you can see them and hear them.
Oh, really, Mr. Langer, you have the most remarkable ability for summoning up the ghosts of the past. When I think of what this room must have known, it makes the cold shivers run down my spine.
It is because you have the imagination that you so feel. That is but right and proper.
I was so disappointed today when you were unable to complete your description of all these fascinating devices.
There is no reason why now you should not them all be seen.
That pair of objects hanging on the wall, there, they look almost like gloves hanging at the end of those iron chains.
They are gloves, but of a variety more strange. Come to the wall here. To you I show them. See, it is most ingenious. So, the iron gloves open, and into them were the hands of the prisoner put.
May I try them? It would all make it seem so real.
But why not? Here, your hands you place inside.
Like this?
Yeah. And then.
Oh, you've closed them?
Yeah.
Most interesting, but it's rather uncomfortable standing here against the wall with my hands chained over my head. So, if you don't mind...
But that is only half of it. All you have not yet seen. I pull back this lever so, and slowly the stones of the floor under your feet move away. Until you are hanging above a pit that goes down into the deepest depths of the castle. And there you shall hang. Or shall hear you until ready I am to pull the lever that the chains will release, and down you will go.
Don't touch that lever. He's reaching for it. Quick, Watson. Good work, Watson. Just in time. Is everything all right, Mr. Holmes? I watched the corridor as you told me. Quite all right, Schiller. Just reverse that infernal device and let's release Miss Atterbury.
Oh, thank you so much.
Are you all right, Miss Atterbury?
Quite. Although it was not an experience I should care to repeat.
I can well believe that. But there's nothing wrong with your courage, madam.
I believe I'd like a cup of tea.
Well, we'd better get this fellow to the hospital, Holmes. I got him through the shoulder. Nothing fatal, but he's losing a lot of blood.
Well, I will carry him, Mr. Holmes. I will take him to the hospital. Go ahead, Miss Atterbury. I'll hold the torch.
I realize, Holmes, that the man was mad. The trap you set finally brought his madness out into the open, but...
It was the only way, Watson. A long shot, but a successful one.
I can't understand what Langer was attempting to gain.
I imagine, Watson, that his mind had become twisted by his many years among his gruesome exhibits of the past. And his hatred of young Schiller, both as a prospective son-in-law and as a successor to his own position, must have hatched this mad plot.
Well, it all ended well due to your foresight, Holmes, and to your pluck, Miss Atterbury. Very good show, I must say.
It was a pleasure. Tell me, Dr. Watson, I believe that Mr. Holmes said that you and he are leaving tomorrow morning for a trip down the Rhine before your return to England. You're not by any chance going aboard the steamer Earl Kearney, are you?
Yes, we are.
Oh, how very fortunate. Miss Simpson and I are going on the same boat, so we shall all be shipmates for a delightful week.
Oh, yes, delightful.
Are you a bachelor, Dr. Watson?
A bachelor? Yes, I am.
The Rhine scenery, they say, is most romantic.
Yes, so I've heard. Just a moment, Holmes.
Yes, Watson?
My shoelace has come undone. You go on ahead, Miss Atterbury. We'll catch up with you in a minute.
All right. don't be long.
I say, Holmes, you take her back to the hotel. I got something else to do.
Going to change our tickets, Watson?
Huh? How'd you know?
I thought you might be thinking of giving up the Rhine trip and getting out of Germany by the fastest train.
A brilliant deduction, Holmes.
Elementary, my dear Watson. Elementary.
Ladies, when you want your hair to look its radiant best for an important date, just do this the night before. Give your hair a 10-minute glamour bath with Kreml shampoo.
I certainly agree with that, Mr. Bell. And you know, Kreml shampoo is the same shampoo used by those famous beauties, the Powers models.
Kreml shampoo has been especially developed to glamour bathe each tiny strand of hair so that it fairly radiates natural, dazzling highlights. It leaves the hair simply gleaming with natural, glossy luster. And what's more, your hair stays that way for days.
And please bear in mind that Kreml shampoo is not a soapless shampoo. It's not a cream shampoo. It's not a drying detergent. Not a harsh soap. It's entirely different.
Yes, Kreml shampoo uncovers all the natural highlights that lie concealed in every woman's hair. Yet it never dries the hair. In fact, Kreml shampoo has a built-in oil base which helps keep the hair from becoming dry or brittle. It removes dandruff flakes the first time you use it.
Kreml shampoo whips up a luxuriant, active foam, even in the hottest water. It rinses out so easily and never leaves any dull, soapy film.
So, ladies, why not buy a bottle of Kreml shampoo at any drug counter and glamour bathe your hair to a vision of shining beauty, like the lovely $1 Million Powers models. Kreml, Kreml shampoo. Well, Dr. Watson, I'm afraid that this will be our last visit for a while.
Yes, I'm afraid so, Mr. Bell, but it's been a pleasure to be with you and our listeners for so many weeks. And I hope you've enjoyed hearing my stories of the adventures of Sherlock Holmes as much as I have telling them.
I think I speak for all of us when I say that we certainly have.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Bell.
You know, Dr. Watson, beginning 1 week from today, Kreml will present a new series of programs featuring Eddie Duchin, to be heard Monday, Wednesday, and Friday afternoons over most of these ABC stations. Consult your local newspaper for the time.
I'm sure that they'll be very fine programs, and before saying goodbye for the summer on behalf of Tom Conway and myself, I'd like to thank all of those whose assistance has made our weekly visits possible. Claire Wiedener of the American Broadcasting Company, Carl Hefferman, our engineer, Bill Verdier and Vic Livoti, who so capably furnished our sound effects, Shirley Wilson, our charming script girl, Alex Steinert, who composed and conducted the music, Dennis Green and Anthony Boucher, Edith Miser, and Leonard Lee, who wrote the dramatizations, and last but not least, our producer and our director, Tom McKnight.
Tonight's new Sherlock Holmes adventure was suggested by an incident in Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's story, The Final Problem. Nigel Bruce appeared by permission of Universal International Pictures. Tom Conway through the courtesy of Eagle Lion Pictures. This is Joseph Bell speaking for Kreml Hair Tonic and Kreml Shampoo and wishing you a happy and prosperous summer. This is ABC, the American Broadcasting Company.